The United Nations reports have declared that the war on drugs have failed, and multiple national leaders are calling for an end. And over 80% of Americans have the same opinion. You should all listen to my speech because we are all voters and we all deserve the right to be listened to. In this speech, I will argue that you should support the bill, H.R. 2306. There are 3 reasons why you should support this bill. The first reason is that the federal laws on marijuana disenfranchises voters. Second, I will argue that the bill, H.R. 2306, will decrease voter disenfranchisement. And third, I will argue that marijuana is not a gateway drug. In Colorado and Washington this past election, the voters voted to make the recreational use of marijuana legal. However, the federal law still states that the use of marijuana is illegal. This is causing a conflict between the state government and the federal government. Jared Polis, a congressman in the 2nd District of Colorado, said that the people of Colorado and Washington voted in overwhelming numbers to regulate the sale of marijuana. Colorado officials and law enforcement are already working to implement the will of the people, and he himself is working with his colleagues and other administrative officials to have a clear guidance that ensures the will of the people is being protected. Since there is a conflict between the state government and the federal government, they must come to an agreement that pleases the federal government and the people of those states. If they don't come up with an agreement that will allow these states to pursue the laws that they're voting for, it could make the people feel that they're being stripped from their rights and that they're being unheard and unlistened to. The citizens have the right to have a say in their government, and if the federal government does not allow these states to pursue the marijuana laws that they voted for, it can make the people feel ignored, not heard, and it could anger the citizens. The bill H.R. 2306 is a bill written by Barney Frank and Ron Paul, and it is titled Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2011. This bill seeks to federally deregulate the personal possession and use of marijuana by adults. Paul Armentano, an expert in the field of marijuana policy, health, and pharmacology, said that the goal of H.R. 2306 is not to legalize marijuana, but to remove it from the list of federally controlled substances while allowing states to regulate it how they please. This bill will allow states to regulate the responsible use, possession, production, and distribution of marijuana by adults to do so freely without the interference of the federal government. This bill would remove marijuana from the list of Schedule I controlled substances, meaning that marijuana is in the same schedule as heroin and cocaine, meaning the federal government sees it as highly addictive with no means of medical use. The bill H.R. 2306 will decrease voter disenfranchisement because it will allow the states who wish to fully legalize marijuana to regulate it how they please. This doesn't mean that every state must immediately legalize marijuana. It just allows the citizens that want the right to use marijuana to do so. The gateway effect of marijuana is a theory that teenagers who use marijuana will move on to use harder illicit drugs as young adults. People often think that marijuana is a gateway drug because people who use or abuse heroin and cocaine often have tried marijuana first. Maya Solvitz said on November 10th, 2009, said that because underage smoking and alcohol use typically precede marijuana use, marijuana is not the most common and is really the first gateway to harder illicit drug use. The federal government funds 2 huge surveys every year on drug use in the population. Maya Solvitz said that in 2009, 2.3 million people reported to trying marijuana, compared to the 617,000 people who tried cocaine and the 180,000 people who tried heroin. This shows that not everyone who tries marijuana is going to move on to try heroin and cocaine. Alan St. Pierre, an expert in the field of drug policy reform, said that for every 104 American that tries marijuana, there is 1 user of cocaine and less than 1 user of heroin. There is no way that we can prove that marijuana is the reason why people go on to use other drugs. Karen Van Gundy said that whether or not teenagers use marijuana and move on to harder drugs, it has more to do with their life situations, such as employment status and stress. This means that people who use harder drugs are more likely using them because they're unemployed and they aren't making enough money to support their families and they're under a lot of stress, so they feel the need to depend on harder drugs to make them feel better. So, in this speech, I argue that you should support the bill, H.R. 2306. First, I argued that the federal laws on marijuana disenfranchise voters. Second, I argued that the bill H.R. 2306 will decrease voter disenfranchisement. And third, I argued that marijuana is not a gateway drug. I feel that you guys should all support this bill because we all deserve to be listened to, and all the voters deserve to be able to have the legal use of marijuana without the federal government getting in the way.